Be fine. Good afternoon, Boomi fans, and welcome back to Dallas, Texas. We're here at Boomi World 2025. My name is Savannah Peterson, midway through day 2 of our power-packed coverage here. And I'm joined by Paul. We're nodding, we're having a good time.
We are.
You've just been a joy to co-host with this week.
It's been fun. It's been
I know.
great. Yeah.
We've learned, we've had some really interesting conversations.
And this topic, I'm really excited for, right? Automation.
This is right up your alley, yeah.
Awesome.
Sanjay, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're very pumped. So we're going to be talking about automation. And we're going to be talking about automation and AI. Automation, not new. AI conversation, quite new. Talk to us about that union and what you're working on.
Absolutely. I feel bad for automation. It gets a bad rap sometimes.
Oh, you have empathy for automation.
Yeah, you know, it's a redheaded stepchild because you hear about over the last 10 years, you hear about bots and all these rigid workflows, and everyone invested in these, and now it's rearing its ugly head right now, which everyone's figuring out. Hey, the ROI on that wasn't so good, right? A UX breaks. You can't track what's happening in the workflow afterwards. So. What this week is about is really AI-driven automation and how we're trying to just meet customers where they are, right? We recognize that you're not going to change what's existing in your workflows today. We're trying to meet all your legacy on-prem hybrid systems and then just help you embed agents in that, right? And that's what we really think automation's about.
So Sanjay, let's talk about failed RPA projects, right? That happen. Like you kind of led with the fact that automation's not new, right? But it has a bad rap sometimes because people would try to do things, it didn't work the way we wanted it to be. I always say when we talk about AI, human in the loop is still necessary, right? But automation is key for productivity and operational excellence, right? So if somebody has done the failed RPA project, what are they going to do? Like if they say, okay, I'm not in gun shy now, like I want to do something, I want to move in this direction, what would you advise them?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and actually Rahul Pathak from AWS had a great analogy yesterday, which basically said, hey, when we got vacuum cleaners, we didn't clean faster, we got bigger houses, right? And so basically what we're trying to do is help customers say, hey, there's a lot more you can do. It's not just that you're going to have I have to give them credit. It's a great analogy, but go back to your question is, look, I think one thing we're hearing from customers is they want to be API led. So look, there are some things where you're on a factory floor and you have some legacy systems that you just have to connect through with, maybe some robots, maybe some, basically legacy code, hard code. But generally customers are saying, hey, in this modern world, I have to be API led. I actually want everything to be APIs on top of the entire process. And so that's where we can actually help customers and say, hey, look, you're going that route, modernize everything and make it API-led, but then what are those APIs going to touch ultimately? You want to expose them to agents, LLMs, other cloud applications, legacy applications. So that's, I think, how we'd approach it is, look, just abstract it a level up and we'll help you get there.
Yeah, I'm going to say it a little bit different. I think the way you just described it, in my mind, makes it less rigid. Like it makes it more dynamic, right? And you have the ability to be flexible in your organization versus, like what you can adjust to your business needs, your business KPIs, and what you're trying to do for those initiatives. Historically, it was like, automation was very much hard-coded, right? And it was like, it was very rigid. So this is different.
You're monitoring a screen, you're recording it, you're saying, hey, look, I'm going to install this agent on someone's laptop, and then as they do these 10 steps or 20 steps, I'll record it. But if the developer releases a new push next week, something breaks, I'm out of luck. And so I think that was definitely maybe 10 years ago, people have started to modernize that a little bit more, but everything's changed with what agents can do for that now too.
Yeah, well, and that's where the Boomi Agent Studio comes in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, talk to us about it a little bit.
You hit the nail on the head, right? So like the next phase of that is like, if you think about a traditional automation process, let's just take a sales order, for example, right? Order to cash. What would happen is, you'd have to monitor when, a sales order comes in. Basically, someone would check and make sure, was that actually the pricing that we offered them? Does that fit the discount, pricing that we can even offer right now that my CFO told me? Can I push that, ultimately, do I have the inventory for that, right? And then ultimately push that back through shipping, et cetera. So there are a lot of human in the loop errors and process that could fall out. What we're seeing now is, look, any place where we can take out human error makes a lot of sense for an agent to go in, right? And so every part of it, validation up front. RAG to a policy about your pricing, for example. Like next step, have agent check your ERP and make sure you have the inventory, right? Continue to go down the process and say, at least have agents help us along the way, do the validation, do the checking, and then also anytime there's document movement along there too, we don't need a human to send an email. We just want those agents to push those for us, whether that's file transfer, actual document transfer, or APIs.
I'm going to add a little bit to that, though. I think that I think that there's a little bit that I think that I want to kind of go out on. It just totally threw me off there, by the way. Well, when you look at the human part of it, I think it's good, right? I think, but the other side of it, it also really adjusts is the technical part of it, right? Location, and I'm going to kind of move a little bit out on a limb here and say, like, all right, well, when we look at location and where data is living. Data is key, right? Tech stack's important. When we look at just say cloud locations, right? In our research we see that organizations use 94% of organizations use 2 or more clouds, 65% use 4 or more clouds, and they're not the same clouds, right? They're 100%. Across different architectures. They're on-prem, they're in edge locations, and now you have all these different areas of integration, right? And how has to work. So that goes back to your core heritage of Boomi, right? Of making things work, right? But then now on top of it, now it's like, okay, location independence, now you have that going on, and now you have this automation that allows you to work across these different ecosystems. I think that's important to kind of call out.
It's absolutely right. And when we went down this journey of basically reinventing automation, we went and listened to customers, as we always do, and we talked to some of the largest customers who have this problem. You see varying differentiations of automation as you go up the scale, but when you look at the largest customers, if you solve their problems, you'll naturally solve the bottom end. And so what we heard from those large customers, they said, it does start with integration because you basically start a process by figuring out the data that's important for that process to know, the context that process needs to know, and that data and context could sit anywhere, like you said, right? It could be on-prem, could be in cloud, could be in a SQL database, could be an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
But you're absolutely right, is when we think about the life cycle of a process that you want to automate, that can start from any one of these sources, and that's what we do best.
Yeah, then enter in AI, right? Because now you have the whole AI LLMs, and you have different data sources, and that all needs to be harmonized.
Absolutely, right? You enrich it along the life cycle. So as long as we first onboard the right data, right? You take, another good example I love to talk about is like an employee onboard process, because there's so many ways I could mess up. I don't know how many times you've applied on Greenhouse, but then by the time you've finally got your laptop, they probably asked you 10 times over what's your name, address, email, number, right? Yeah. There's a huge automation error, and none of us, I guarantee no one in IT wants to deal with that either. So we think there's a lot of these processes where you can say, hey, let's make sure you get the data from the right place, single source of truth, automate it throughout the whole life cycle of it, make sure you're checking, mastering that data, and then finally, it's all about business outcomes. Do you have, a better experience out of it too?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think there's been an over-index of obsession on the hype of LLMs and some of the instances that we've seen, but it's all about turning insight into action, and that's what you guys do. So how are you collaborating with your partners in your community to help them do that, to guide them on that journey?
Yeah, no, look, absolutely. I think a lot of what we're doing right now is, one, trying to understand, hey, you have dashboards and you have insights, that's going to take you part of the way too. But what we're, next step, and a lot of what we're doing too, and we, also just announced a, partnership with QAD, where we really want to kind of elevate what we're able to elevate through process intelligence, to understand for our customers, figure out where do your processes lie, how can you bring some of those into what Boomi is doing with AI, we can go discover those for you, and then ultimately go execute and make those agentic.
That's pretty exciting. What are some of the trends you're seeing in agentic in terms of how folks are deploying or what they're automating first? You mentioned the HR processes, but do you have some other use cases you can share?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think order to cash, huge process for a lot of our customers. 1/3 of Boomi's customers are manufacturing, retail, CPG in that space, deal with large volumes of data and orders. So huge opportunity there to basically do the validation checks, pricing changes, dynamic inventory. I think there's a lot there that just has opportunity for error that we can automate, right? Yeah. We think about, in the HR world, tons of opportunities where you're hitting, benefit systems, compliance systems, payroll systems. All that integration work has a lot of opportunities to break along the way, so if you have a full process that hits those, we think it makes sense to make sure you're integrated across all of those first.
And not to mention that those systems that you just mentioned there, they're typically heritage systems. right? So you're bridging the gap between old and new, right? You're basically taking, not just from an automation perspective, but you're saying, oh, this is a heritage data set that might be encapsulated, that might be a system of record that's going to stay there, and you have new systems of engagement that need to access that, right? So now you have the platform allows for that modernized approach with still retaining your business KPIs and your business running. So.
No doubt. You see it all the time in inventory, vendor procurement, but if you have an SAP instance that's either on-prem, an air-gapped environment, it's for good reason going to remain there because some of that code will not be touched and moved and migrate to the cloud. But for those reasons, you want to make sure you can access that as well as access a lot of your modern cloud applications too. And combine
well, let's also be honest. I mean, a lot of those systems were built a long time ago, and some of the staff that built it is no longer around, right?
Yeah,
and the organization
they might be walking around somewhere here. We might be able to
maybe.
find them. Yeah.
But a lot of those organizations are looking to encapsulate those heritage systems and leave them as is, right? And so it's a good way to kind of look at the old and new because it's not everything is a greenfield opportunity, right? We like to think it is, but it's really not. It's like you have to keep the business running.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right.
Yeah. So I'm curious, since we're talking about automation, what do you hope the agents automate in your personal life?
If I could have my dream, I would wake up in the morning, my espresso would be brewed automatically because it is now figured out, it's connected to my phone, knows when I woke up, and by the time I finish my shower, brushing, change, it's ready to go. That's what matters to me most is my espresso intake every morning.
I agree, that makes sense.
I think that's such a lovely analogy. I love my espresso machine, and it's a deep love, and she's actually getting repaired right now, and it's my
mine
morning.
Too.
What is the deal, man? And I feel like my morning ritual is just totally.
Yeah. The bots are uprising on us.
I know, right? Or they know just how critical they are.
Yeah,
they need a little.
Teasing you. Like, we'll give you the caffeine today.
Yeah. All right, Sanjay, I got one final question for you. When we are having this fun conversation at Boomi World 2026, what do you hope to be able to say then that you can't yet say today?
It's great question. Last year we actually allowed our customers to use agents inside the Boomi platform. I think this year where they're going to start to actually have access to use those outside their platform with their customers. I'd love to come back next year and have them show customer stories and outcomes about how those agents actually help them show tangible value in their automation process.
That's great.
Well, we look forward to telling those stories with you, Sanjay. That'll be great. Thank you so much for taking the time during such a busy week.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And thank you, Paul. And thank all of you for tuning in to our 2 days of fantastic coverage here at Boomi World 2025 in Dallas, Texas. My name's Savannah Peterson. You're watching theCUBE, the leading source for enterprise tech news.